This week, I have a love story, a little bit late for Valentine's Day, but I do love a love story, don't you? I'll begin now. Yvette and Don. Unable to do a job with regular hours, having the daytime care of my daughter's two sons, I resorted to making my home earn its keep as I had done years before. I therefore registered with the accommodation officer of a Midlands university. I was given two names of trainee teachers, Yvette and Linda. Linda was to qualify as a sports teacher and Yvette an English teacher. Yvette was 34, from Portadown, Ireland, and had gone into college as a mature student, determined to make a bid for freedom from her family home in Ireland. She was bright with a quirky sense of humour and had a twinkling smile, but appeared uncertain of herself. When she first arrived, she was devoid of makeup and dressed in shapeless clothes in neutral colours. She wore her black hair in a bob and had lovely fair, translucent skin. Her placement was at a senior school in the town. Linda, 23, was the lovely, wholesome, outgoing girl. She contrasted sharply with Yvette, who was quite shy and socially unconfident. Nevertheless, a bond was quickly formed between the two girls, despite their contrasting characters, both enjoying sharing their day's classroom experiences over dinner each evening. By the October half-term, Yvette was giving us daily news about her lunchtime conversations with a teacher called Don, who taught maths at the school. Both had free periods each Friday and spent the time chatting together in the staff room. As the days went by, more information on Don trickled out. He was unmarried, he lived alone, he had his own home, and he lived 10 miles away, close to an area of designated natural beauty. It became clear from our daily questioning that Don, like Yvette, was a passive and retiring individual. But it also became clear that Yvette couldn't get him out of her mind. Don began to dominate all her conversations with us, though not about the man back in Ireland with whom she'd had a long-term relationship. The man, a sports journalist, lived and worked in Belfast. He was very much a man's man, finding it sufficiently nurturing for a relationship to collect Yvette from her Portadown train as it pulled into Belfast station each Friday evening, and return her 24 hours later to catch the train back home, and in time for him to join his buddies at the local pub. After 12 years, it was unlikely that this relationship would go further, but Yvette still lived in hope. Don's obvious enjoyment of Yvette's company daily must therefore have been quite flattering, and as an admitted born romantic, Yvette's dreams of a flowering romance, albeit with no proof of Don's interest in her, seemed to hold the relationship in suspense, just as it had done with her Belfast lover. This simply wasn't good enough for Linda and me, although when I answered the weekend calls from her Belfast man, I found his accent and his voice quite beguiling, and wondered why it had not been possible for Yvette to fan the flame of passion in him. She came home one day excitedly telling us that a date had been arranged for school staff at end-of-year Christmas dinner, and she hoped that this would give them both the opportunity to sit near each other and spend their first sociable evening together. At last we had a chance to dress her up for the occasion, to be noticed. Her dowdy aging clothes were out of the question, so we, Linda and I, made a hasty trip to my mother's house nearby to bring back a variety of size 16 tasteful outfits. Yvette was a little taken aback by this small show of glamour, but we refused to take no for an answer. Persuading her to wear a little makeup, and dare I say small earrings, required the combined forces of me and Linda. We won the day, and Yvette left for the Christmas meal looking like the bee's knees. We couldn't wait for her to come home, but her face told us everything as she came through the door. She looked so dejected. Apparently, the seating arrangement in the big restaurant had left them sitting at opposite ends of their room and their backs to each other. This had been her last opportunity to take their casual friendship a little further, as she was due to begin a new placement in the new year at another school a few miles away. The meal marked the end of term, and with it her broken dreams. Fate is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Always with her head in the clouds, Yvette had forgotten to return the book to the school library until a card came through my door reminding her. It was then that Linda and I started plotting to find one more chance for these shy would-be lovers to meet. We insisted that when Yvette returned the book to the school library, that she takes a Christmas card and put it in Don's pigeonhole, hoping that he would be tidying up his end-of-term affairs there. We even worded it for her. Happy Christmas, Don. I have enjoyed my staff room Friday afternoon chats with you and will miss them. If you feel like meeting, here is my phone number. Yvette. For Yvette, this was an outrageously daring thing to suggest, but we now held her in sway. What is there to lose, we asked her. And soon, the last Friday afternoon, she returned the library book and duly placed the Christmas card in Don's pigeonhole. That evening I was not at home, and the following morning I picked up from my landline a number I didn't recognise. It proved to be a code for the town where Don lived. Yvette had gone shopping, and neither of us were in for most of the day. That evening a call came for her. It was Don. He asked to pick her up the next day from a spot out of view of my house and take her to his home, where he would take her for a walk and then have tea. Wow! Yvette came home with stars in her eyes and visited him the following weekend, failing to return that night. I took the ritual Sunday phone call from Yvette's Belfast man friend the next day. He phoned her once a week, always on a Sunday, and always at the same time. As Yvette was with Don when I had the call, I was unable to answer his question, where is she? So telling a white lie, I replied, I've just returned home, so can't help you. This pattern of phone calls repeated themselves for the next 3 weeks, by which time I suggested that Yvette deal with her man friend, as my excuses were beginning to sound hollow. With Don at her side, she rang her Belfast man friend, telling them that she would not be returning for the Easter break. Finally, there was a 3-way conversation between him, Don and Yvette, reiterating over a 2-hour call that this new relationship meant an end to the Belfast affair. Yvette, now at the age of 34, had taken control of her life and her relationships. A few weeks later, she moved into Don's house, gave up her teaching career, and made plans to get married and move to Ireland. I spent a very happy evening at Don's house with them both, and was moved by their obvious devotion to each other and his delight at her quirky sense of humour. A year later, I was invited to their wedding in Portadown and stayed at the home of her brother and his family. It was a beautiful wedding of 2 people obviously very much in love. It took place during the week of the Orangemen march through Portadown, although the presence of armoured tanks outside the church did little to dampen the happiness of both families. A charming chalet-type hotel in the exquisite countryside was the venue for the reception, where a piece of creative prose written by a friend of mine was read out rather like a fairy story about the circumstances in which they met, the obstacles along the way, and the happy ending. Linda, the sports teacher, had become a firm friend of Yvette, achieved a distinction in her subject and married another sports teacher. Yvette never did teach, but achieved her heart's dream. She was a born romantic after all. I do hope you enjoyed that love story. I still enjoy rereading it. See you next time.